The first laugh cut deeper than the clippers at IT echoed inside the training barracks, sharp and careless, followed by another, then another, until the sound stacked into something ugly. The buzzing of the clippers drowned out everything else, vibrating against her scalp as dark strands of hair slid down the white tile floor. Emma Carter didn't scream. She didn't beg. She stared straight ahead at her own reflection in the cracked mirror, jaw set, eyes steady, hands clenched behind her back. Every instinct in her body told her to react, to break free, to defend herself. But she didn't. Not because she couldn't, because she knew something they didn't. Hold still, one of them said mockingly. Wouldn't want it uneven. Another voice snorted. Relax, it'll grow back. Or maybe not. Some people just aren't cut for this. The clippers ran again. More hair fell. Emma felt heat behind her eyes but refused to let it spill. Crime would give them what they wanted. Anger would too. Silence was her armor. She had learned that a long time ago. The men around her weren't monsters. That was the worst part. They were careless, arrogant, convinced they were untouchable because they laughed the loudest and stood together. They thought they were correcting a mistake, teaching someone her place. They had no idea whose place she actually held. You should have quit when you had the chance, one of them said. This isn't a charity. Emma's voice was calm when she finally spoke. You're done. The clippers paused. What was that? The tallest one asked. I said you're done, she repeated, still not turning. The room erupted in laughter again. Listen to her, someone said. Still thinks she's in charge. The clippers started back up. Emma closed her eyes. Not because she was afraid, because she was counting every second, every sound, every footstep in the hallway outside. She knew the schedule. She knew who was supposed to be where. And she knew one thing for certain. This wouldn't stay quiet. The door at the end of the hall slammed somewhere far away. Heavy footsteps followed. Fast, purposeful. The laughter faltered just a little point. One of the men frowned. Who's that? The footsteps got closer. Emma opened her eyes. The clippers buzzed once more, then died mid-motion. The door to the barracks flew open so hard it slammed against the wall. Silence dropped like a weight. The man in a sharply pressed uniform stood in the doorway, eyes blazing, presence filling the room before he even spoke. His rank insignia caught the overhead light, unmistakable to anyone who had ever worn a uniform in their life. What is going on in here? He thundered, and no one answered. The man's gaze locked onto Emma. Her half-shaved head, the hair on the floor. Her posture, straight, unbroken. His expression changed instantly, from anger to something colder. Who did this? He demanded. Point. One of the men swallowed. Sir, we were just quiet, the man snapped. Every single one of you. Now. He walked forward slowly, boots echoing against the tile. Each step felt like a countdown. He stopped in front of Emma. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice suddenly controlled, measured. No, sir, she replied. Did you consent to this? No, sir. The man turned. Do any of you have any idea who she is? He asked. And one answered. Some of the smiles were gone now. You thought this was a joke, he continued. You thought humiliating her would make you bigger. He stepped closer, his voice rising. She outranks every single person in this room. The words didn't register at first. Then they hit. Hard. The tallest man's face drained of color. That's not possible. The man in command laughed once. Sharp. Joyless. It is not only possible, he said. It is a fact. He turned back to Emma and nodded once, a gesture of respect. Ma'am, he said loudly. Permission to address the room? Emma finally turned to face them. Her hair was uneven. Her expression was calm. Her eyes held no hatred, just certainty. Granted, she said that if this story has you hooked, make sure you subscribe to Generals and Truth Stories for more powerful, realistic, and emotionally gripping stories where truth, courage, and quiet strength always rise. Because this was only the beginning. The silence after her words felt heavier than the shouting that had come before. And one moved. And one breathed loudly. The man in command turned slowly, his eyes scanning every face in the room, memorizing them. Not with anger anymore, but with something colder. Disappointment sharpened into authority. You will stand exactly where you are, he said. Every single one of you. One of the men opened his mouth, then thought better of it and shut it again. The clippers slipped from numb fingers and hit the floor with a dull clatter. The man in command took a measured breath, then spoke in a tone that carried without effort. "What you just witnessed," he said, "was not discipline. It was not training. It was not humor. It was misconduct." He stepped aside slightly, giving everyone a clear view of Emma. "She was placed here under my authority," he continued, "not to be tested by you, not to be humiliated by you, and certainly not to be touched without consent." One of the men finally found his voice. "Sir, with respect, we didn't know." "That," the man replied instantly, "is the least convincing excuse you could have chosen." He turned to Emma again, softer now. "You were right to remain composed. You were right not to escalate. But you should never have been put in that position." Emma nodded once. "Understood." He straightened. "You," he said, pointing to the tallest man, "step forward." The man hesitated. "Now," the commander barked. The man stepped forward, shoulders stiff, eyes down. "You thought removing her hair would remove her authority," the commander said. "You thought embarrassment equaled weakness." He leaned in just enough for his words to cut. "You were wrong." The commander stepped back and raised his voice again. "Every individual in this room will be separated pending review. Effective immediately." A ripple of shock moved through them. "This isn't a debate," he added. "This is accountability." He turned back to Emma. "Ma'am," he said, "if you wish, you may leave this room." Emma looked around, at the hair on the floor, at the faces that wouldn't meet her eyes anymore. "No," she said calmly. "I'll stay." Something unreadable passed through the commander's expression. "Respect, maybe." "Very well," he said. He gestured toward the door. "Escort will be waiting outside." The men were let out one by one, some angry, some ashamed, some pale with the realization that a line had been crossed they couldn't uncross. When the room was finally empty, Emma exhaled for the first time since the clippers had touched her head. The commander removed his cap and placed it under his arm. "You shouldn't have had to endure that," he said quietly. "I've endured worse," Emma replied. "I know," he said. "That's why you were trusted." She met his eyes. "Trust doesn't prevent ignorance." "No," he agreed, "but it exposes it." He paused. "Do you want this addressed publicly?" Emma thought for a moment. "No," she said. "I want it addressed correctly." The commander nodded. "It will be." Later that evening, Emma stood alone in her quarters, staring at her reflection. Her hair was gone in places, uneven in others. No attempt had been made to fix it yet. She ran a hand over her scalp. It felt strange, but it didn't feel like loss. She remembered the laughter, the buzzing sound, the choice she'd made to stay still, not because she was powerless, but because she knew exactly when power would speak louder than fists. The next morning, she walked into the main hall without a cover on her head. Conversation stopped. People stared. She walked with the same posture she always had. Back straight, pace steady, eyes forward, not defiant, unashamed. Someone whispered, "That's her." Emma heard it. She didn't slow down. By midday, the story had already twisted itself into rumors. A general appearance, a confrontation, consequences. But one detail remained consistent in every version. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't struck back. She hadn't needed to. Days later, Emma sat across from the commander again. Papers lay neatly arranged between them. "This is the final review," he said. "Your statement has been recorded." Emma nodded. "You handled yourself with restraint," he continued. "And that restraint prevented a situation from becoming something far worse." "I didn't do it for them," she said. "I did it so I wouldn't have to explain myself later." He smiled faintly. "That's leadership." He slid a document toward her. "Your position remains unchanged," he said, "but your visibility will increase." Emma raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a warning." "It's an acknowledgement," he replied. "People notice those who don't break when pushed." She signed the document. When she stood to leave, he added, "One more thing. Yes, you don't owe anyone an explanation for who you are." Emma met his gaze. "I know." Weeks later, her hair had begun to grow back short, uneven, honest. Someone new passed her in the corridor and nodded with genuine respect. Not because of rank, because of how she carried herself when no one thought she mattered. If this story resonated with you, If you believe real strength is shown through composure, integrity, and knowing when not to strike, make sure you subscribe to Generals and Truth Stories, because true authority doesn't shout that IT stands, and it lasts.